to share ideas and concepts with you, but they're only useful if you can bring them into your own business and use them. So during the day, as I go through these ladders, and there's 12 of them, well, it's a very tight schedule. So what I have to do is give you the techniques, the processes and concepts that we use within each of these ladders, and I'd like you then to have an opportunity to look at these ideas and what they would mean for you personally and for your business. So what I'd like you to do, and I'm going to ask you to do this during the day, is to have some short discussion sessions. And I'd like you to do this in partners. So I'd like you now, if you would be happy to do this, and I hope you will, to turn to somebody who's going to be your partner for the day. Now, if you don't know this person, say hello. If you do know this person, say, you are the person that I'm going to be discussing these concepts with. So could you turn to that person now and shake hands with them, please? We've only got 0.5% scrap in our company. Now, I don't go to many companies where, if they're manufacturing, they've only got 0.5% scrap. That's already very good. But what that didn't reveal was that means that 0.5% means that 995 parts out of 1,000 are right. That's only 5 out of 1,000 have a defect. That's excellent. But it also means that when they make 10,000 parts, there's 50 wrong now. And when they make 100,000, and they do make hundreds of thousands, that's 500 parts wrong. And nowadays they measure in parts per million, and by the time they made 1 million parts, that's 5,000 parts wrong. Somebody's going to get that. And when the customer gets something that doesn't work, we don't care that you've got 0.5% scrap in the factory. All it means to them is, my product doesn't work. So we don't care what it's like there. So over a period of time, and it took them 10 years, so from 1982 here to 1992 there, they gradually raised the bar until here in 1992 the standard they set was no more than 3.4 parts per million parts produced defective. Now this is excellent, 0.5%. This here is 1,200 times better. That's what world class looks like. You cannot get there next year. It takes you time. And you have to stay with the bar. That's why my book is written in the field of ladders, because it's a step-by-step process getting there. But the thing is that you'll get to places you never thought you would get to. I go to companies where they think 0.5% is marvellous, and they think it's impossible to get better. It's very possible to get better. Now, when I look in Fortune magazine, and it tells me what good companies are doing marvellous things, they every year run a thing called the Top 500, the Global 500. And they show you how these companies are doing. And this last year, in 2004, these were, I've just picked out some figures for you, these are some figures that appeared in Fortune magazine. And you'll see some of these companies there, you'll know them, and I would think that you would probably think, yes, I would probably say that most of these I would put in the world-class category. But then, how many of you knew that Intel manages to sell $402,000 worth of sales per person in the business? I bet nobody knew here. You also didn't know that we're making $88,000 profit per person. But most companies, that's what they measure. They measure their financial numbers. But to be honest, the customers who are thinking about what is a world-class company, when you think about what is a world-class company, you don't measure the numbers. You measure what applies to you. What does the company do for me? So I look at Disney, and people think, well, it's a marvelous company. Go to Disneyland, it's beautifully done. It's quite outstanding, very world-class in terms of show. But how many of you knew that we're only doing $18,000 per person in profit? that they were only getting 4.4% return on assets. How many of you knew that Royal Dutch Shell were doing $2 million worth of sales per person? In fact, twice as much as Petronas. But how many of you knew that Petronas was twice as, in fact, 3 times, 4 times more profitable than Shell? How many people knew this? Hands up. Exactly. None of you. If I took you back 5 years, yes, you wouldn't know that we were only doing 20% then, would you? Or you wouldn't know that Microsoft was making 40% nearly net profit from their sales. Now that's world class. It's changed and it's left people like British Airways standing. So world class changes all the time. So as far as the customer is concerned, they're looking for value for money. They want a product that's going to be reliable. If they phone up later on when they've got their new computer and they, do you have this here? You phone up and it says, there will be 4 options. Just choose from the following 4 options. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you choose one, and now there are 3 options. And you sort of stagger about listening to all this, and then we will connect you with an operator. When you get the music for another half hour. Now, do you have this here? Yeah. We have it all over the world. And of course, I was listening to one not yesterday, just before I came off the UK, and it said, we are committed to the best customer service. Now here are the following 5 options. I thought, oh, well. So good service is what it means to the customer. That's the point I make to you here, that customers value what you mean to them. Now, you cannot be marvelous at everything. When people go to the Olympics, if they're training for the 400 meters, they concentrate on that. They don't do weightlifting and swimming as well and expect to win the gold medals at everything. They have to make a choice. So there's plenty of measures that would measure what world class looks like. And here's some I'll put in front of you. On market performance, how are you going to judge your market performance? If you're going to be, I go to many companies where they say, we want to be first place in our market. And I say, well, what is your market? Well, nobody's defined our market, but we want to be first in it anyway. Now, I get this a lot. And what does being first in your market actually mean? Would it be measured by market share? Would it be measured by innovation? Would it be measured by sales growth? You have to make a choice there, because you're not going to be marvelous at everything, as you saw by these figures earlier. Or are you going to concentrate on customers? Is it going to be the waiting time to get your product? See, the best waiting time is none. That's world class. When I want my product, I have it now. I don't have to wait for it. Or is it going to be right first time? Every time I get the product, it works first time out of the box. What are you going to concentrate on? Are you going to concentrate on, we answer the phone within 4 rings? Or does the customer care about that? What are you going to do to decide that we're world class when it comes to handling customers? Or are you going to sit on financial performance? And what will your measures actually be? Or are you going to concentrate on how we manage our employees? We're going to be world class at that. And how will you measure where you are world class? Will some of these measures there? The employee survey scores? I don't go to many companies where they do attitude surveys to find out how they're managing their employees. But I know, as you'll see later, that some of the data that you get from attitude surveys is very valuable in getting yourself to world class and in persuading employees to help you get there. So I'll be talking more about that later on. Or are you going to measure yourself by internal efficiency? Now I have to say that this last bit is where most people concentrate when they're thinking about being world class. They look internally at how they run the business. They very seldom look outside at what they mean to customers. But the point I'm making here is you have to make a choice. You have to decide what you're going to focus on to become world class at. Some of the companies that are world class at things are very small niche players. I'm thinking of some world class companies that just make musical instruments. or they make hospital beds, but they don't make anything else, but they're world class at that. Kircher, the German company which makes water pumps, is world class at water pumps. That's all they do. They've decided we are going to be world class at water pumps. And similarly here, you're going to have to make a decision, if you want to be world class, what you're going to be world class at. So you can't win all the gold medals. So the first 3 points I make there is, 1, it takes time to become world class. If you decide to focus, you can, like Motorola, get to a standard of performance which is difficult for everybody else to catch up with. Very difficult. And thirdly, you have to make choices about what you're going to be world class at. Don't try and be world class at everything. Now, I think in your bundle you should have a piece of paper which is called a world class scorecard. Have you got that in your bundle? Could you bring that out now, please? Okay. Wherever you are, the point being made is, if you're at level 1, you can see what you would have to do to get to level 2. If you're at level 2, you can also see what you have to do to get to level 3. And the point being there is, it's a step-by-step process. So it's useful for you to see, really, from the levels. Then I'm going to go through all of these factors there, and they've each been divided into 5 levels. And I'll be describing some of the concepts there that have taken world-class companies up the ladder to world-class standard in each of these. And you will be able to take some of these concepts and ideas, and I'm sure take them home and apply them in your business. And hopefully that's what I'm going to be doing today. So let me go a bit further then. I beg your pardon. Can I go back one? That's better. Right. If you've chosen the wrong direction, you've not got a business. And I have to say, world-class practices don't help you with that, of doing business. The structural advantages of what we created have been so incredible, they masked almost any mistake we could make. And we could make a lot of them. Now that's a very important factor. Please don't think that world class is your savior to having a viable, profitable business. The viability of the business is about choosing the right direction for your business. Once you've done that, then you can use world-class practices to make yourself among the best in the world. But choosing the right business strategy is more important than anything else. Have we found... we will distribute the scorecard sheet in a half-hour's time. So can you wait half an hour, people? This is still level 1, by the way. Okay. Well, let me describe, are you able to read this at the back? It's very small, unfortunately, to try and get it all on the screen, so I'm sorry about that it is so small. But perhaps if you can read it, that's fine. When we go to level 1 companies, and we're looking at, have they got objectives clear? We have managed to tell them we don't need objectives here, we know what to do, we just get on with it, we don't need any of all that nonsense. And I know then I'm in a level 1 company. And when we look at companies with their objectives, we wonder whether the top management know what their objectives are. Now, for those of you who can try this, I shouldn't really let you into the secret, but it's the tactic that I use pretty well every time we work with a new client. So I'm talking to the directors, and I say, well, I suppose you're all pretty clear about what the top 3 priorities are for the business over the next 3 years. Oh yes, oh yeah, oh absolutely, absolutely. Would you just do me a favor? Would you just write down what you think they are? You mean now? Yeah, well, yeah. Could you just do that? So they start writing it down, and they start look at the neighbours, see what they're writing. I remember one director in one company, he didn't write anything down. I said, you're not writing anything. He said, well, I don't know what the managing director actually wants me to write. So I said, only if he says so would you write it out. He said, well, yes, really. Yeah. Now, when they had written all this down, in fact, the managing director in that particular company said, I've just handed them out 3 weeks ago. They've all got a copy of the company objectives. Why would you need to write it out? Just do this with me, would you? Now, I never go to a company where, when I ask for the answers, and I get up on the flip chart, I fill 2 flip charts full of what are supposed to be the top 3 priorities in the business. I never fail to. It's going to happen one day. I'm going to go to a company where they're all going to say the same thing. But if the directors don't say the same thing, how are the middle managers going to say the same thing? And if the middle managers don't say the same thing, how are the people right up the front line, how are they going to know what to do? So, are we handing them out now? Oh, this is marvellous. Very good, thank you very much. So if you're able to follow this, this would be very useful. Thank you very much. Good. It's just very important that the directors are at one about what the objectives for the business are, because it saves departments all working at 6s and 7s and not staying with each other. And I have to say that if the directors and the top management are not at one about the objectives of the business, the chances of them becoming world class are next to zero. And I say that from a lot of experience over the last 18 years, that we need to get the directors of the business, the people who are the senior management of the business, at one about where the business is going. And it needs to be expressed in such a way that everybody in the business would understand what you mean. Let me give you an example. Some years ago, it must be 10 years ago now, the Metropolitan Police in Britain, which is the Metropolitan Police in London, asked some consultants if they would find out why their reputation seemed so low in the city. They were trying very hard, but their reputation was regarded as very lowly any time they did surveys in the city. And the consultants came back and said, well, there's no clear direction for the police anywhere. We go to different divisions and they all seem to be doing different things because there's no overall direction being set by the commissioner. So he decided to write this statement of common purpose, and there you see it. And it's just 10 statements. So to uphold the law firmly and fairly, find to maintain public peace, to act with honesty and integrity. Most of the time she came back. Why can't we do this in the UK? What's wrong with that? Why isn't it fair that people should be able to walk anytime, anywhere, without being molested? And just to treat everybody fairly. I don't really care whether they are black, or they're white, or they're Chinese, or they're Muslim, or they're Christian. We don't care about that. We just want everybody treated in a fair, sensible way. Now, there's 4 things that we like about these type of goals. And the first one is, they're so simple, they could be understood without further explanation. That's fundamental. If your people have got to ask what your goals mean in your company, they're too complicated. They are already too complicated. And by the way, although this looks easy, this is hard. When you're sitting down with a blank sheet of paper and trying to come up with simple, actionable goals for all your people, that's hard. And secondly, they would be actionable every day by every person in the organization. That's very important. Unless your people do something active to get yourself forward on the world-class road, nothing's going to happen. They'll do what they did yesterday, and tomorrow they'll do the same thing, because you not make it clear to them what I can do to help you. Thirdly, we could set objectives on each of these. So to take a simple example, first constable, his boss sits down with the policeman and says, well, in your section, George, what are the crime statistics? And George, the policeman, would probably say, well, I don't know what the crime statistics. Well, ought you not to be finding out, George? Could we find out what the crime statistics are for burglaries and breaking into houses, breaking into shops, muggings, all that sort of thing, and bring it back to me. So George goes off, gets some statistics, brings it back to his boss and says, well, these are the statistics. Now, George, do you think we could make a very small difference in each of these, just in your patch? And what help would you need from me to do that? Now, that means that now George can be active in taking our goals forward. But unless they're simple enough, he cannot. So the third thing we like about it is that they're measurable and we can write objectives on them. And the fourth thing we like about it, and this is just as important as anything, last night looking at television, I saw that you see football games, team working, and I noticed that when teams like Manchester United come out, they look like a team because they've all got red shirts on. But the reason they also act as a team is there's only one goal for the whole team. There's only one goal for the whole team. And they can all see what it is. Nobody has to tell them. If you didn't have a goal, they wouldn't act like a team. What makes them a team is they have one goal. And it's measurable. The ball goes over the line. Or it's not a goal. It's very simple. And not only that, they don't care who in which department actually scores the goal. If a centre forward scores the goal, the goalkeeper jumps up and down as well. Oh, yes, great. That's the way it needs to be in your business. That the goal is the same for everybody. And here, if we had something like 3 simple, actionable goals for the whole business, all of a sudden they start moving towards world-class standards of performance. But without this, they all continue to do what they always did. That's why it's frustrating for most companies. Write goals, but nothing seems to happen. And one of the reasons is your people can't interpret what I can do every day to help you. And if you take the trouble to do that, suddenly it will change. So if you're going to write some useful goals for your company, here are some characteristics that's worth taking into account. The first thing is simple and easy to understand. Secondly, actionable every day by every person in the business. This is hard, but it's absolutely critical. Something that management will be able to show by their actions their genuine commitment to. I've no doubt most of you have heard of British Aerospace. British Aerospace, does that mean something here? The company makes the Airbus. You know the Airbus, Lars? Now, we did quite a lot of work for, I can tell you this now, I couldn't tell you at the time, but I can tell you now. We did quite a lot of work for Airbus at their plant where they make the wings. I don't know if you realize this, but the Airbus is made in 3 different countries. The tail is made in Spain, the body is made in France, and the wings are made in England. Don't worry, it still goes together okay. You'll be all right if you go in an Airbus, it still works. And we were implementing world-class practices with British Aerospace then, and the directors got rather enthusiastic about zero defect quality, which we had introduced them to, about how to achieve zero defect quality. And they decided what we're going to do is a campaign on 0 defects out of the door to Toulouse. The stuff goes to Toulouse to be assembled in France. And it's a big wing. The wing would be probably the length of this room here. It's big. And when they've got it complete, it goes on a special truck, which then takes it into a special plane, and it goes across to Toulouse, to a schedule. And the director said, we're going to do this great song and dance act about 0 defects. Well, I said, well, it's a bit early, step by step. No, we've got to do it, we must do it. We've been asked by Toulouse to get it right, and it's time we did. So they decided to run this campaign. In the factory there, about 5,000 people. They've got a cinema, which holds about 500 people. And they brought these people in 500 at a time, 12 meetings, all the directors. We are going to do 0 defect, lots of videos and posters on the wall. We are going to do it, 0 defects out of the door. It was a great campaign, posters everywhere. People got on with the business, and they had never done such powerful program before us. I've realized this is something new, something different. In month 2, one wing was not quite ready. The trap door, which allows you to get inside the wing to the pipes and the wires and so on, wouldn't fit. But it was 5 to 4. The wing was to go at 4 o'clock. The truck was sitting outside the door. The manager has to make a decision now. It's 0 defects out of the door. The trap door does not fit. What will I do? We've had this great campaign. Everybody will be watching. What will I do? This is the decision for me as a man. What do you think he did? What do you think he did? He kept it to set an example. How many people think he kept it because you need to set an example after this great campaign? He ought to hold it back. Many people think he held it back because it wasn't right. Hands up. Many people think he still sent it. Hands up. He sent it. Why did he send it? When I asked him, he said, well, if I hadn't sent it, the managing director from Toulouse would be on to my managing director, and the managing director would come down on the shop floor and say, what's happened to this wing? And there would be lots of hassle, so I decided I was going to send 2 engineers on the plane with the wing, even though it wasn't finished. Now, that's a signal which is much bigger than the whole campaign. Because what that says to the people is, it's all words. They don't really mean it. What counts is getting it out of the door. Quality only if you can manage it. That's serious. And you see, whatever you come up with, whatever goals you come up with, if your feet don't move in the same direction as your mouth, they believe your feet and they stop helping you. Am I making that clear? That you've really, really got to be serious if you're going to go down the world-class route. Because within 3 weeks of starting, a test will occur and the employees are all watching to see what you do. And every manager is part of the company. See, the fact that this manager was a middle manager didn't mean it. He was actually on behalf of the company. This is what the company thinks. So they condemned the whole company. And the whole program, I have to say, went to hell, which is terrible. They spent all this time and effort, and they really meant it seriously, but their commitment wasn't there. And it's so important that if you're going to go down the world-class route, you have to mean what you say and say what you mean. It's very important for you not to move the goalposts. If I can give you an example, I used to work for the Mars Group, which is a pretty large international company, and apart from confectionery, one of the big industries is pet food, dog and cat food. And in the UK, when I was there at one point in time, we had a 70% share of the market. We thought we were pretty smart. I mean, after all, 70% share. The next competitor, 15%. Well, I mean, 15%. We are pretty marvelous, really. And we strutted a bit because we were pretty terrific, we thought. And as a group of directors, we said, we're going to get terribly fat and complacent if we don't think about continuously improving. So what are we going to do? So we did 2 things. First of all, we're going to set ourselves a productivity objective, which is slightly better than what we've done so far. So we set a 9% year-on-year productivity goal every year for the following 10 years. Why 9? Because we had done 7 the previous year. Simple as that. Nothing complicated. And secondly, we knew that we had to keep our prices stable and down. If you keep them below the rate of inflation, then more customers would obviously think this is getting more convenient to use their sort of pet food rather than to make our own for our own pets. And what happened then is we said, well, how can we improve productivity? We're going to have fewer numbers, we're going to have different equipment, and we started then planning for the next 3 or 4 years. We told our people, there's not going to be as many jobs here. But none of you are going to lose your job. We're not going to fire anybody. We might offer packages if you want to go, but you'll always have a job here if you want one. It may not be the same job, but you'll still have a job. And secondly, we're going to cut prices. So how are we going to do that? Well, one of the biggest costs is the can. I presume you have dog and cat food in cans here, do you? Yeah. And you'll notice perhaps that food cans are in three pieces. There's a body and there's a top and a bottom. And that's called a three-piece can. And you'll notice that some beverage cans are only two pieces. There's only one top. That's because it's punched out of a piece of metal and then the top added on top. And we knew that if we went to two-piece cans, we could save a lot of money. In fact, it was the only way we could keep prices down. So we asked our current big companies who supplied us with cans. This was billions of cans. I mean, we were the biggest user of cans in Europe. And the two companies said, it's too expensive to move from three-piece cans to two-piece cans. We can't install the equipment. So we weren't going to be put off. And they pressed us and said, well, how are we going to do that? Are we going to make cans ourselves? We didn't want to do that. So we approached British American Tobacco and said, do you want to get out of tobacco? Would you like to make cans? Oh, make cans. We don't know how to do it. We'll show you how to do it. We'll install the first two lines for it. We'll take all you can produce in the first 2 years. After that, you'll have to be competitive. Do you want to do it? Yes. As soon as they said yes, the other two big companies said, oh, we can install that equipment after all. Interesting. Now, we would never have done that if we didn't think these objectives were going to stay all the time. So in the first year, we only did 8.5% productivity improvement. It was 8.9 in year 2, but it was in double figures for the next 5 years. And that's because we learned how to do it. Because we knew that the 9% was not only this year, it's going to be next year, it's going to be the year after that, and the year after that. And you get really world-class at doing that if the goalposts don't move. So it's very important that you choose goals which are ongoing and don't change every year, because people learn how to become better and better until eventually they're so world-class, other companies can't catch up with them. It's useful always to measure how are we doing and to indicate to your people how you are doing against the goals that you've chosen and you want them to help you with. And also, there's opportunities for celebration when you win. That's important. I can just take one very simple example, again from the Mars Group. When we hit, I think it was £500 million worth of sales a few years back, we decided to give everybody a present. And it was a wallet for the men, and it was a purse for the ladies, very nice, leather. And we didn't tell them this, but we put a £10 note inside it. So when they all, oh, very nice, oh, thank you very much. Never asked for it. We want you to feel part of a successful business. Now that's an important feeling. To step inside your business and feel, this is where I feel successful with this company. So when you're setting these simple goals, which everybody can help you with, celebrate success and enjoy it on the way up the ladders. Celebrate every step on the ladder as you progress. People love the feeling. Now what I'd like you to do, if you don't mind, yes, let me just add one item. Here's an example of a company called Rubbermaid. They're an American company. They make plastic basins, they make rubber products. A simple company, and you know they won the most admired company in the US in 1995. And they're committed to innovation. An admired company, they had produced 365 new products that year. And everybody understands things are going to change, the products are going to be different. Finance department, no, we're going to have to have new figures for different products. Some products will disappear. Manufacturing, no, we're going to be making new products. Salespeople, no, we're going to be selling new products. Marketing, no, we're going to be dreaming up new products. There's nobody doesn't know we are an innovative company. And when they get that message, they become, then I would like you to turn to your neighbor and say, what you think your current top priorities are in your business, and then I want you to ask yourself to what extent they look like this. Okay? So I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do that, starting now. But write down your answers first, please. Don't start discussing until you've actually considered the answers to these questions. We said, well, who are your customers then? Let's talk about the people who get the results of your work. And senior managers, and they said, we don't have any customers in the R&D department. You've not got any customers? No. You've got no customers. Nobody gets the result of your work. Well, if you've got a customer, there's only one customer. Who's that? The cashier. Oh, the cashier. Who's the cashier? The guy who signs the notes, you know, he's got his signature on there? That's the only customer you got? Yep. And what I didn't know at the time, but I know now, is that the cashier gave them an order. There was only one customer for this business. It's a beautiful business to be in. There's only one customer. Marvellous. And he gives you an order every year without fail. An order comes, and by the way, in this particular case, he never asked the cost. Whatever it costs, that's it, just print them. 50 billion notes of this, 20 billion of that, 30 billion of that. And wasn't it interesting that at the printing works with about 1,000 people in there, they always worked overtime in the last 2 months of the year, even though there was only one order and they knew what it was at the beginning of the year. Marvellous. They said, but we're world class already, they said. Oh, you are? Oh. Well, why do you think that? Well, look at this banknote. It's a world class product. What wasn't revealed was all the machinations that went on in the company. I presume you have trade unions here. They had trade unions in the Bank of England. And we tested to what extent they were efficient within the bank. And it was interesting, although the printers started at 7 o'clock in the morning, the machines didn't run till 8 o'clock. And I said, why don't they run till 8 o'clock? Oh, they've always done that. Yes, but why don't they run? Well, it's just what they do. So the industrial relations manager used to be a printer. So I said, Ron, how long does it take to wind these machines up? Oh, he said, 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe. I said, why did they wait for an hour? I said, well, they've always done that. I said, I know, but why did they do it? And they stopped an hour beforehand to clean up, supposedly. And when we worked it out, 26% of the time the machines were idle, even though the printers were there. When we examined the first machine, its efficiency, we found that it was working 43% of the day. In other words, they had twice as many machines as they actually needed. But they still said we were world class. So we spoke to the R&D department. We said, well, don't you think that the banks are a customer? After all, they handle the notes, they put them through telling machines. Oh, well, yeah, so we wrote up banks as a customer. Cashier was the first one. Do you think manufacturing is a customer? Manufacturing? Yes, manufacturing. They've got to be able to print it. Oh, well, I suppose they're a customer. Now, that particular year, they decided to put foil, aluminium foil, on a £50 note for the first time. And it was stamped with a beautiful rose. The pattern was beautiful. But they didn't tell manufacturing, and manufacturing had never used foil before. So when they had finished the design, they threw it over the wall to manufacturing, but they couldn't print it. So although they had an order for 30 million, they couldn't manage to print any, and so they got none that year because nobody told them there were going to be foil on the note. So we said, no, manufacturing is a customer. And then we had retail, like big supermarkets. Yes, that's a customer. And eventually we had a full flip chart full of customers. And over a period of time, they decided that we've got a lot of customers, really. And they reorganized the whole division to face into different customer segments. And it just changed the pattern of how they did the work. And all of a sudden, this department halved in two, and they still achieved the same amount of work. Now, when it happens, when you start looking at customers and deciding who your customers are, it's important that people realize that the customer is the person either inside the business or outside the business. But most customers, for most people, are inside the walls of their own business. Now, some of you will have, it's horrendous because they're a big business. And they have been so much benchmarked, they're focused on customers only. That's their key focus. If they looked at the 12 ladders here, they would say, we only focus on customers. That's the thing we're world class at. And I emphasize to you, please choose the one that you want to be world class at. But if I go to LL Bean, this is what I see on the wall. A customer is the most important person in this office, whether in person, by mail or telephone. He's not dependent on us. We are dependent on him. He's not an interruption to our work. He's the purpose of our work. We're not doing him a favor by serving him. He's doing us a favor by allowing us to serve him. And a customer is not someone to argue or match wits with. Nobody ever won an argument with a customer. A customer is a person who brings us his wants, and it's our job to handle them profitably for him and for ourselves. And I never go into any department in LL Bean, but there's not that poster on the wall. But it's not like British Aerospace. They mean what they say. They really mean what they say. And when you get to that stage, you don't have to talk to anybody about that. You've probably heard of a company called Marks & Spencer in the UK. And Marks & Spencer a long time ago decided that, in fact it was one of the owners decided, I don't see why we should stock any products which we wouldn't buy ourselves. Why do we do that? And if there's anything wrong, well, I think people should be able to bring them back and we should take it back. And there's two things about Marks & Spencer that everybody recognizes. It's quality products only, and you can bring it back any time and get your money back. And not only do the directors know that, every person who works for Marks & Spencer knows that. You don't have to tell them. They're better than that. All their customers know that. They know that's what Marks & Spencer represents. Now, what do you represent to your customers? If I were to ask them about you, what adjectives would they use about you? What adjectives would you want them to use about you? Because if you can write the adjectives down, then you can start organizing your company to do just that, to serve your customers well. Am I making that clear? That stand in the shoes of the customer and ask them, what would they like to see in you as a company? And you will be able to see what you can do to start on the first rung to the next level of world class. Now, sorry about this. I'll get rid of that little frog in a moment. One of the most powerful things we introduce into companies when we join them in the seeking of world-class standards is the idea of your customer being inside the business. And our definition of a customer is the person who gets the result of your work. The person who gets the result of your work. Now, when we talk to people, whether they're in offices, or they're consultants, or they're on shop floor, manufacturing, we talk about who gets the result of your work. And almost always, for 80% of the people, that person is inside the business. That person is not outside the business. And it's important for people to realize in businesses that there's a chain of customers that most processes go through, and it has to work at each point of the chain for you to get a zero defect product at the end, if that's what you want to deliver to the customer. So we take our individuals, when we're working with companies, we take them through this little process here of describing what it looks like to be a customer. And I'm going to use a car industry example because it makes it easy for me, okay? And in this particular case, when they're building a car, the first thing they do is to shape the metal to look like a car. And when the metal comes from the steel manufacturer, it's flat. It's just like a sheet. And in the press shop, which is this bit here, represented here, the sheet comes in, it goes into a great press. Those of you who have been there might have seen them. And these things might have 300 tons pressure up to 1,000 tons pressure. And when you press the button, it goes down, ba-doink! And all of a sudden, out comes a boot lid, or a wing, or a roof. Oh, now that's when you add value. And that bit in the middle is adding value, is changing the product in some way so it is of value to the customer who's next in the line. Everything else is waste. Waiting around, not doing things, machine waiting and so on, waiting for maintenance, all of that is waste. The only thing that adds any value is changing the product in the middle there. Now, we want the individual at this first part of the process to act like a customer. So when you get the sheet of metal from the steel department, don't put it into the press unless it's perfect. We don't want cuts in it, we don't want weight, we don't want burrs on it, because we're not going to get a zero defect product at the end. So we want you to act as inspector. You're the customer and you're the inspector. So don't use it unless it's right. Add some value by changing it, and then be the supplier to the next person in the line, and don't give it away unless it's perfect also. Unless it allows the next person to do a zero defect job. So that's the process. So as it goes through the chain, then we expect this person to pass it on there for the next person in this is the body shop where they put the body together, and then finally it goes into the machine shop where they add things like wheels and steering wheels and engines and gearboxes and all that. And eventually it might come out in the end as a product to the external customer. Now when you sell it to the external customer, you sell it as a perfect product. But it can't be a perfect product unless it's perfect on the way. So we also know that, and this is basically a Toyota idea, but as a supplier, supplying it onto the next person in the line here, we want you to act as an inspector. And we use a simple phrase, and it is, don't take it from the supplier unless it's right. Don't make it unless it's right. Don't send it unless it's right. So don't take it, don't make it, don't send it. And we want you to act as the eyes and ears of the company, and this is what we call two-point inspection. So it's inspected 100% by the person who's moving it on, and it's inspected by the person who receives it before they use it. We call that two-point inspection. And when we introduce two-point inspection in any process, in any company, we know that within 2 months, 80% of the previous defects will disappear just by using two-point inspection. That's a key feature, especially in manufacturing areas, of world-class practice. That's one of the simple world-class practices, is two-point inspection. Now, we also educate our people in the business that they're all customers inside the business. And we want them to identify who their customer is by name. By name. More of this in a moment. But we also educate people that everything that happens inside the business only adds cost. We don't actually, if we're a commercial business, make any money until the external customer decides that the money, the ringgits he's got in his hand, is worth less than the product you're willing to sell him. Then he's going to pay you a price for that product, and only if the price he pays you is greater than your costs are you actually going to make a profit. And it's only when you're making a profit you're going to have a viable business. Now we find that making that clear to people inside the business changes their view about who the customer actually is. The customer is the next person in the line. And when we're working with sections, when our consultants do that, they ask everybody in any section to name 2 customers of theirs, just by name, and they then have to go and visit these 2 customers and ask them simple questions. But let me just summarize the customer chain bit, that individuals inside the business can be a customer and a supplier at the same time. Every person's task is to add value, and that means changing the material or information in some way. And the customer is the next person in the process, and quality means fulfilling what the customer requires. Quality is not what you say it is, it's what the customer says it is. And it's only by delivering a value greater than their cost. Very few people we find, non-managers, think that the value they deliver to the company should be greater than the pay they're getting. But that is the way a commercial company obviously operates. And when we get them to name 2 customers, we get them to go and visit them. And they have to ask these 3 questions. Now, if they ask question 2, first of all, they usually get a long list of faults. And it often makes them depressed. So we ask them to ask the first question first. What do we do well now, which you appreciate and you want us to continue? And almost always, their customers will tell them, well, we like this and we like that, so we'd like you to continue to do that. And they begin to feel good about that. Then they get a list of things that they think they could improve, but we ask them not to take 16 things away with them, giving the impression that they're going to put everything right tomorrow, because it doesn't happen that way. And we ask them to ask the customer, if we were to concentrate on just 2 of these items for you, what would you choose? And they must come back with something which is doable within a month. Now, this is dead simple, it's very practical, but it's trying to educate people about working for real customers. And when they come back with that, generally speaking, it's something they can do, and if they do it in the month, we want them to phone the customer and say, remember I agreed to do this? Well, we've done that now, and you'll probably see this happening. And the customer generally expresses gratitude, well, thank you for doing that. And we ask them to do that just once every 2 months for the first year. And when they've done that 6 times with their customers, the customers begin to think, hey, we can work together. And departmental boundaries seem to fall down. But then they realize that the whole chain of customers is how it's going to work if we're going to do it for the outside customer who's paying us money in the end. And one more thing out of that ladder store on customer focus, which you can see at the moment, is the business of complaints. And I just want to put in front of you some research that was done by a company called TARP, which stands for Technical Assistance Research Programs. They're an American company. They live in Massachusetts, Cambridge, Massachusetts. They are non-profit making. They do government surveys. And one of the big surveys they did was about customer complaints. And here were some of the key findings of their long study. And the first one, surprising, was that 96% of irritated customers don't bother to complain. So don't think that the complaints you get are a reading of what all the customers actually think. 96% of them, even when they've been irritated, won't have told you. So please don't think that complaints are a good measure of your service. But the second thing is, of the 4% who did complain, now I'm thinking about 1 in 25 now, okay? 95% of the little complainers will come back if you handle the complaint well. If you handle it at all, 70% of the little complainers will come back. But if you talk to them but don't manage to solve the problem, 46% of the small complainers will still come back. But of those who are irritated but not complain, this is a 96%. Only 37% of the people you did not talk to will come back. Point being, if you talk to the customers who complain, you'll get more repeat business than if you don't talk to them at all. There's money in talking to the customers about their complaint. In fact, what the customers are telling you is giving you opportunities to improve. And if you've not got a setup which listens to customers in a way which says, we want to listen to this because we know we can make something of it, then you're losing out on the business of customer focus. Now, I want you to look at that ladder, customer focus, and I want you to decide where you think you are, what level you are in your company. Have a look at that now, and is there anything in some of the points that I've made that you could use back in your company? Would you like to have a look at that now, and then tell your partner what you decided? Ladies and gentlemen, can I ask you, how many people find that looking at customer focus that they are at level 2? Many people think they're level 2 or above. Hands up. Many people think they're level 3. Oh. Any level 4s? Any level 5s maybe? Ah, we have one level 5. Will you stand up and take a bow, sir? I've never seen a level 5 in customer focus, and it's marvelous. Thank you very much. Good. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what I would like you to do with the oils. Please look at them and consider what it says to you. Please make it alive to yourself and to your organization. Please use the stuff that's in there and try and apply it in your business. Now, we're going to have a little interval until 11:45. Okay? But what I would like you to do for me, I would like you to be world-class about coming back at the right time. Okay? And that's 11:45, please. Back in your seats with your bottom on the seat. Is that all right? Good. 11:45. Thank you.